We want you to think bigger and bolder in whatever you're going to be doing, and we want to make those ideas real, innovation real. Okay, what's my background? Well, I've written books on innovation. I have taught as a professor on innovation, and I've been a management consulting helping big companies on innovation, and I've been an entrepreneur also. Why do I have the right to speak about innovation? I worked at Motorola, and my team started something from nothing and built lithium-ion batteries and supercapacitors for the first time ever in the history of human beings. The lithium ions on your phone, the batteries on your phone came from the team at Motorola, and that was the team I was part of. Very proud to be of that team. I have also built companies, a robotics company back in 1996 when people didn't know what a robot was and didn't know what a machine vision was and what a camera was, and mechanics and electronics and software and optics. And we integrated those to create a robotics company that we ended up selling eventually to Accenture just 3 years ago. And since then, we're also working on building another business, which is right now an AI-powered innovation company. It's called Akayo. Right? So that's my right to speak and share with you mistakes made, lessons learned, and things that hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes that I might have made in my life and career. Okay. What I want you to begin with is just 3 things, very simple. On your company that you're building, it's growth. That's the ultimate objective of your company. You got to make it grow. So make growth your strategic imperative. Every day, what can we do to grow, grow, grow? And if you make growth your imperative, then you'll do really well. And then as you go through this journey, this early journey, not the journey of a big company, but a journey when you're a small company and you're starting something from the beginning, you can't use anything you learned in business school and your MBA programs because those are configured specifically to help you succeed in big corporations as managers and employees. You have to think differently as an entrepreneur, and you got to act differently as an entrepreneur. The way you think is not the same as many other people, and the way you'll need to act will be very different than that's necessary. And how do you do that? So that's the purpose of this whole presentation. We'll begin by growth. Remember this much, if you're not growing, you do die. These are companies that started amazing innovations and successes, but eventually they all died. And why do they die? Is because they stop looking into the future for what's coming next. And all of you, whatever you're doing, whatever you're starting with, remember the world will change and you will have to pivot. And challenges come. When we put this thing together back in about 2000, we predicted the failures of Yahoo, and we were suggesting the failures of JCPenney and others. And we also forecasted the failure of Apple in 2030. Well, guess what? Intel was a prediction that we said, and now Intel's in trouble. Look at this. Just to give you an idea, if you do not keep on paying attention to growth, the guy on the right is the CEO of Intel. The guy on the left is the CEO of NVIDIA. The red line on the graph is the stock price, the value of Intel. It has not changed at all. But meanwhile, look at the value of NVIDIA. It starts off almost as a non-company, a new player in the game. It comes along and it sees an opportunity which back then was just graphics for computer screens. And this guy says there's a lot of people who like gaming early on in their history, and they create technology called a graphics processing unit, GPU. And that GPU gives this guy the right to play. And then they realize somewhere in the future, there's another opportunity coming, and that opportunity begins to be Bitcoins and crypto. And that gives them a big boost because the calculations you do for graphics were the same calculations, the vector calculations that will be needed for Bitcoins, heavy computing in using vectors and linear algebra and all that kind of stuff that the Intel processor was not able to do. Now, the question to the Intel CEO is, did he see the future? Was he able to see what was going to come next? And the answer is, of course he did. Of course he did. But the problem was he was stuck in what he was doing and couldn't really pivot and change, even knowing what was going to happen. And then, of course, AI comes along and AI basically puts NVIDIA on the map for the first time. They don't do anything different. It's the same chipsets. the same computers that they were using, GPUs, which are now being applied to AI. And then suddenly, overnight, we get a company like NVIDIA, which becomes almost $1 trillion company. It's right now valued at $300 billion, right? So the idea over here is, what is it about this sort of people, which is you guys, that's you, each one of you. Are you going to be like the guy on the right, or are you going to be like the guy on the left? So what did the guy on the left do? He saw early on that there was something going on in the world. GPUs for general purpose computing, observed AI trends, build a comprehensive AI ecosystem. I will bring back that word later on, an ecosystem of partners. And he acquired those key competencies to be able to play the game. And as a result, he grew 10x in the last 2 years, 10x in the last 2 years to $3.4 trillion. On the other side, we got our friend at Intel. He just got fired, just so you know that. He said, we are focused on our traditions. We didn't change a lot. We didn't pivot, short-term focus, not thinking well. The next second, we are done, right? So that's the story. So you guys are all entrepreneurs, and this is your idea that you want to grow your company. You want to grow it big, whether it's $1 million company from 0 to million, 0 to 10 million, 0 to 100 million, whatever the large number is. You got to be clear about what you're trying to do. So you got to ask, how big is that growth that you're expecting? What's the gap? How much do I have to build? Think financial. What's the revenue? What's the earnings? How big does the growth have to be? If you think financially, then you'll stay on target, because the product by itself does not make you successful. It is the revenues and the earnings. So stay focused on what makes a business. Second is, be clear about how much time you have to deliver this thing. How much time? Some of the time is defined by how much money you have. How much time do you have, or how much time do you want to give yourself to do this? Because if you're very clear about the time, then you'll decide whether you can work slowly or work fast. If you want to get to $1 million in 1 year, you might have to run really fast. You might have to work a lot more. You might have to wake up a lot earlier. You may have to make your teams work harder. And so you got to really think about how big of a company you want to grow and how much time do you have. Entrepreneurship is not one of those industries where you can do things 8 to 5. Competition comes, so you got to go faster. You don't know what you're doing, so you got to go faster. You got to keep on working. Hard work is the essence of all entrepreneurs. And then how much will you invest? And this is also important, investments. Some of that investments is from you, your personal time, your personal credit card, family's money, the job that you're not taking, where you could go get a job. But how much will you invest? Be very clear about what you're going to invest, and then see if the investment you're making is sufficient to get you to the target and the time that you're allocating to do that. If you put a slide of this type together for yourselves, it will organize your whole thinking. What revenue are we targeting? How much time do we have? And what investments are we willing to make? And you make some adjustments on these things. If you work 2 hours a week on this thing, sorry, you're not going to build a company. If you work 60 hours a week, you might get there. How much time do we have to close the gap? Now, one of the challenges for most people, and this is not you guys, was if you want to close the gap, you obviously have to plant seeds today, which is called your business idea, your idea or your concept. That idea will eventually show some success, whether it's a prototype that you build or a prototype, so people can say, oh, I see, there's something there. And you got to keep on watering it and nurturing it, trying to make it healthier so that it doesn't fail in testing, it doesn't fail in the market. You got to keep on taking care of it, making sure it can grow into a robust product, robust offering, or robust something. And eventually, customers will start buying it, and it's the fruits of that tree. That's the customers buying it, using it, and therefore you make it. And hopefully, you had planted the right seed that would give you the results that you were expecting. Now, the problem often is, did you plant the right seeds? And the challenge is, how do you know what seeds to plant today for something in the future, maybe 2 to 3 years out? How do you know the idea you're working on is the right idea? Because it takes time for that idea to grow. for the tree to become a tree before customers start buying the fruits of your products. And so the challenge over here is, are you sure you're planting the right seed today for the future? Are you patient and persistent to make sure that you take the time to nurture those ideas all the way through, or you don't give up? Because if you do push it through and it is the right seed, then you'll make the right profit. But it takes time, just like a farmer. It takes time for a whole year before you can actually get your harvest in farming. And those farmers are patient and they're persistent and they check the idea and they look at it, they argue with it, they fight with it, and they're very, very realistic about all the information to see whether they should pivot or not pivot and fix things along the way. So do you have the patience, persistence? This is what you will need to have. Do you know how to plant the right seed? Do you have the patience and persistence? And ultimately, hopefully, voila, you did well. Congratulations, very proud of you. Right? So that's the story. It's growth. You're trying to grow your business, grow your idea, grow yourself, grow your teams, grow your people. But it's growth. And if you stay focused on growth, put a target on it. And once you put a target on it, then say, how much time do I have? And what will I invest? Now, if I invest in it, then make sure you know what seeds to invest. And then you need to be patient, persistent to get to the end goal. But if you do, you'll get there. So how do you come up with those big ideas? How do you know it's the right idea? Well, you got to think differently. And the way you do it is you ask, what's next? What else? And that's what you guys did. Many of you are in cybersecurity or cyber types of ideas, and you ask, what's next? What else? And you probably says, it's digital, everything's connected, blah, 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 security will be important. And therefore, what's next? What else? You got to come up with an idea. But you need to do that every morning, even today. Even as you have found an idea, you got to keep on asking, what's next? What else? Because that keeps your brain working. Because it's possible, what's next? What else? Somebody else has already done it. Or what you're working on, again, the information in the market changes and the market conditions are changing all the time. So you got to be flexible in this thing. But you need a breakthrough idea. And your breakthrough idea comes from asking what's next, what else. What I want to give you now is, what is the definition of a breakthrough idea? What's a test you can do on your idea whether it's going to be real? Okay. So there are 4 things that you should ask whether my idea is a breakthrough. First one is, what are the trends that support my idea, my breakthrough idea? What trends support it? Now, the reason we ask about the trends is, your idea that you're talking about today will take some time to produce, some time to build. So the idea that you came up with right now is not for today's market and today's competition. It's actually something in the future, 1 year from now, maybe 2 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, for you to go to market. So whatever, it's in the future. So in 1 year from now, will it still be the same technology? Will it still be the same customers? Will the competition be the same people? And if those things are well understood, then you might have a breakthrough. So I will ask you, the technology that you're using right now, the platforms that you're using right now, the customer you're targeting right now, are those going to be still there in the future? And the only way for you to know that is to use trends to be able to forecast whether that trend of that technology will still be in the future, or that customer you're targeting will still be there. And the competitors that we see today are the same competitors in the future, or will there be new competitors in the future? So you need to be able to look into the future. And trends is the only way to see the future, because the breakthrough that you're working on is not about today. Be very clear about that. Everything about today that you're seeing in the market. Let's talk about AI, for example. 2 years ago, everybody was surprised when ChatGPT came to the world. So, oh my God, wow. But do you know how long they were working on it? They were working on it in 2010. 2010. So in 2010, those guys looked at the trends and says, what will be there in the future? If we work on AI, is the right technology platform? Is the right partners, the right customers? And they had to figure out what the world looked like in 2023 when ChatGPT came to the world in 2010. So you need trends to validate whether your idea will be relevant in the future, number one. Number two, you got to make sure your idea, your breakthrough, is going to serve somebody. And usually it's a human being who has needs, whether it's safety, protection, or something else, whether it's food, whether it's love or social, education, transportation, basic human needs. What problem are you solving for this human being? If that problem that you're solving is really there and will be sustaining into the future, then your breakthrough might be a good breakthrough. But if it's unclear to you who you're serving, then if you make the product and you don't know who it's going to serve, then they will not probably pay for it. A human being, when you solve their problem, is willing to pay you money. Pay you money for your ideas, pay you money for the benefits you're delivering on their needs. Right? The second question I will ask you on your big ideas, what human needs are you satisfying? Okay. And then the third question I would ask is, that's great. You're serving some human needs. It makes great sense. But how will you make the money? How will they give you the money for the benefit you're delivering to them? So they're happy. You're serving the needs. But can you collect your fair share of the value you deliver to them? Remember the value proposition? You're delivering a value proposition to them. But how do you get your value for delivering them their value proposition? That's the business model. How do you capture value? Because you want to capture that money and you don't want somebody else profiting from it. You need to make sure you've got a great business model. And we'll talk about each one of them in a little bit more detail. And the fourth one is fantastic. You have an idea that works in the future because of the trends. It serves the human needs. Therefore, they will be willing to give me money. You have a business model to capture the money, whether it's subscription, rental, or something. And if you can capture all of that, guess what's going to happen? Competition is going to say, my goodness, what a cool idea you have. What a great idea you have. And they're going to copy you. You cannot stop the world from copying. Be very clear about that. All you can do is slow them down. They will copy you if you got something cool. At Motorola, we made the first cell phones on the planet. We had 500 patents on our cell phones. Within 9 months, Ericsson, Philips, Siemens, and Sony had also produced their own phones. We said, we got patents. And they said, no, we got our own patents. And then lawyers got in the way and blah, 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 and there was a big fight. What is the real barrier to stop your competition from copying you? Well, first of all, you just want to slow them down. So what are your barriers? And I will ask you, what is your moat? What is the barrier that nobody can copy you? What's the barrier that once they copy you, you still can retain your customers and somehow win in the market in a sustained way? An innovation breakthrough is something that's relevant in the future and sustains in its competitive advantage for a long, long time before people copy. That's what a breakthrough is. That's what Starbucks was. That's what the iPhone is. That's what Tesla as a car is. The breakthroughs only because nobody can copy them while they deliver a wow to the customer and they collect a lot of money from the market. Okay? All right, so that's the definition. So let's look at some trends. There are many, many trends happening in the world. Aging population, health and wellness, food and safety, artificial intelligence, the emergence of the United States of Latin America, cybersecurity, 3D printing, you know that. And they went more than that. There's also biotechnology, automation, digital economy, green economy, gig economy. And there's so many things that are happening that are going to change the world in a different and meaningful way. CRISPR, our health, obviously pollution control, carbon sequestering, all kinds of trends are happening. And then we go further. The Asian century is coming as a demographic. Gen Zs are here. The recycling personal economy, green climate, all those gives you a view of what the future of the world will look like. In your space, maybe this might be more relevant. Digital literacy, blockchain, digital transformation, precision agriculture, cryptocurrencies, trade policies. All those trends tells you what the world will look like 5 years from now. And in that world, is your idea relevant? Number two, you got to look at the human needs. What are the human needs? And on human needs, when you look at them, there are needs of sleep, oxygen, food, basic needs. The needs of cognitive stimulation, autonomy, financial security. And that's why cybersecurity is a big thing here, because our money is protected there, our identities are being protected, our IP is being protected, all kinds of things. And there's warfare about to happen on that side. What's the human need? What do we need that you're delivering on? And then when we go look at business models, there are not just one business model. There are many business models, whether it's advertising, whether it's maintenance, whether it's dynamic pricing, subscription, franchise, fractal. Remember, two companies making the same product, same exact looking product, but one makes more money than the other. It's the business model. Apple and Samsung, for example. They both make a phone that looks almost exactly the same. Exactly the same. But Apple makes 30% profit, while Samsung makes only 15%. Why does Apple make so much more profit? And it's the business model in terms of how they work versus how Samsung works. Samsung doesn't have an app store where they collect 30% of the profits of every app on the planet. Apple does. Samsung has a cloud, but we never heard of it. iCloud, we all know it connects their iPhones to the computers, to the iPads, and everything else in one seamless way. Samsung doesn't, and therefore it decreases your cost of selling adjacent products. There's a whole business model that's unique to Apple that makes Apple win. It's not the product, it's the business model. So think carefully about which business model you choose, and don't think that the first one is the right one. Think carefully on that. And then you got to create barriers to entry. You want to make sure people can copy you. And the way you stop people from copying you is thinking about how do you get unique access that your competitors might not have. Access to customers, access to maybe locations, access to some partnerships. How do you get bigger than them as fast as you can so you can decrease the cost of your unit activity? As you get larger, your unit cost of everything goes down, from sales to operations to purchasing and anything else. Then ultimately, you could also do differentiation. How do you know? You know people will copy you. So when you launch your iPad 1, you know Samsung's going to make their copycat. Well, they did. And when Samsung launched their copycat, what did Apple do? On the same week, Apple launches iPad 2. They had already planned iPad 1 and iPad 2 and iPad 3 before they launched iPad 1. And they said, how much time will it take to copy us? And it says, 9 months. So let's make sure iPad 2 can launch in 9 months. And iPad 2, smaller, nicer graphics, and a little bit of a smaller camera. Version 2, version 3, version 4. Think about what version 2, 3, 4 looks like. So there are many ways to create barriers to entry, whether it's access, differentiation, or with the scale, but it's not just patents. Okay? There are many ways to do that. And you must think about it now, not after you launch your business and you get your product to the market. Think now. And therefore, we come to this thing called acting differently. You guys really need to act very differently in terms of making things real. Let's assume that you have a great idea, and that great idea is based on trends. It serves human needs. You got a fantastic business model, and you put in place barriers to entry. Well, now we're going to make it real. Well, there it is. Sits on the bottom left-hand side. You got to make it real, and that's where you make the money. Sometime in the future, finish line. If you ask a lot of people, what does that journey look like? What does the journey look like? In many major companies and people who get older, they'll say, it should be easy, straight line. You guys already know that's not true. The journey from the bottom left to the top right is a little bit more complicated because you're trying to develop a product. You're trying to understand if the market wants it. You don't know if that's the right customer, whether it's the right functions. You change the customer, you change something else, you're learning. So some people will say, let's do it as we were trained in project management. Project management tells us we could be very careful and plan it step by step, milestones and everything else. Good luck if that's what you believe is needed to make it happen. The real journey of innovation is going to look like this. I hope some of you are laughing and you're like, yep, damn right, that's what it looks like, right? That's the real journey of entrepreneurship and innovation. It's not a straight line, it's a squiggly line. It's a line similar to crossing the Amazon forest. This journey from the bottom left to the top right is a journey of exploration. Explorers, for example, if you were asked to cross the Amazon forest from the Atlantic going to the Pacific, if you can find a road through the Atlantic, through the Amazon, then you don't have to go all the way in a ship from the down South America to the other side. You can just cut across and go to the other side across the Amazon forest. Queen Isabella asks you and your team to cross the Amazon forest and find a path to the other side. Bottom left, you're at the Atlantic. Top right, you're at the Pacific. And now you start walking. Did you know as you walked into the forest, there would be a big river? Well, you might have anticipated it, but do you cross the river right across in a straight line? No, you don't. You walk upstream on the river to see if there is another path. And as you walk up the path, eventually you find a narrow path and then you cross over, not a straight line. And then you see maybe some mountains. You didn't know the mountains were there. Do you go straight up the mountain? Of course not. That would be crazy. That would be suicide. So you walk around the mountain edges, ledges, and you walk around the first mountain and you didn't know there's another mountain. Nobody told you. You don't have a map. You don't have a GPS. You don't have a Sherpa. You got nothing. So you see a second mountain. You're like, okay, guys, let's try and climb or go around that mountain. And you walk around that mountain. Go around the left side again. You see another mountain. You're like, guys, I think this might be the wrong way. So you come back, and you're allowed to come back. Because when you chose to go left, you didn't know whether left was a bad decision. You only knew that if you go left, you'll discover something. And what you discovered was it was a bad decision. And therefore, you've learned something. Now you go back the other way. And if you keep on looking around, eventually you'll get across the mountain. And then you see a ravine. Same situation. Do you go straight down the ravine? Never. You walk around the ravine. And then you see some angry tribes. You make a U-turn. And then you see some of your people get sick of malaria or something. You wait, you help each other. But eventually, if you're patient and perseverant, you get to the other side. So it requires a very different characteristic to go from the bottom left to the top right. And the characteristics of those people who do that, they are acting differently and thinking differently. They have grit. When they fall down, they stand up again. That's you guys. They can do. If somebody says, can we do this? I say, yeah, I think I can learn. I think I can figure it out. They collaborate. They collaborate with anybody and everybody to make sure things happen. And they're willing to experiment. Experiment, which is trial and error. Like scientists, like people, like chefs, like architects, they experiment. They try this, they try something else until they learn something and they move forward. And to address this thing in modern entrepreneurship language, we use the words create outputs, artifacts, be ready to pivot, change directions, do sprints so you learn quickly, and be agile. And that's a technique you will have to use. But why do we call those? Why are those techniques developed? It's because we want to train more people to show grit, can-do, collaboration, and experimentation. So the thing is, that's what you guys need to have, and that's the sort of team you will need to hire as you build your team. This is really important because if anybody on your team is not can-do, Somebody doesn't have the grit. They don't want to collaborate. This journey it sucks. Imagine on this journey, one guy says, "Oh, this is too hard. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. Let's quit." How much energy do you need to lift them up to move them forward? That energy will come mainly from you, the leaders of the founders of your company. And so you want optimistic, can-do type people to help you go across the journey. Now, we have got some shortcuts, and I think this is why you guys are in this incubator accelerator at the moment. In order to go through this journey, you can shortcut some of that. You can shortcut some of that by basically having coaches and mentors. Coaches and mentors are people who have done similar journeys before. And so you ask them, can we go? So we bring somebody along the way, say, hey, and sometimes because of their history and their experience, they got pattern recognition to say, don't do this or do this. Very valuable. You don't need to make the mistakes that they did. And they can tell you, do this or do that, and they'll give you some coaching and guidance. Very important. So they have experience. They've got some sort of respect. You trust them. And what they provide is expertise or insights of what to do. Very important. Then there's a process that I encourage you to follow now. In the past, entrepreneurship was left to people who just had grit and were very straight up, don't give up and things like that. But today we see it can be codified somewhat. And so we make that into a process. Be agile. Do sprints. Quickly run through something so you understand everything about the process, and then you can identify what might be the issues. Do sprints, short sprints. Do them fast, low cost, and then experiment. And be ready to pivot. And make sure whatever you do, you have artifacts. You're creating an output, a brochure, a website, an NDA partnership, a customer who's sending emails back and forth saying, if you build it, I'll make it. I'll buy it. And then ultimately your team, which is made up of people, teams, and partners. Now we'll talk about partners last, but people in your team, you want to make sure you hire the right people. You need them to have these characteristics. And these characteristics are so critical for success. One bad teammate, one bad hire destroys entrepreneurial teams. Be very fast to get rid of people who are problematic. And therefore this expression, hire slowly, fire quickly. And nobody likes to fire anybody. Me in particular, I hate it. But the amount of energy you will consume when that energy needs to go to find the customer, the channel, the product, the technology, the brochures, the websites, the financing, the marketing is too much that we waste our energy with people who suck energy out of your team. So keep that in mind. Good teams succeed. High performance teams is what you're trying to build. Okay. So let's look at our friend Jeff Bezos. He built a company. There was a time when he was just exactly where you were. And he has emphasized this day one mentality. How excited are you on day one? Remember that first day when you started a company? That's the mentality. We're going to build a company. We're excited, blah, blah, blah. He says very much, we must see anything that we are going to fail as learning. We took a left turn around that mountain. We didn't know, but we learned not to go left the next day, right? So learning is a key part of these things. We want people on the team who are missionaries and not mercenaries. Mercenaries work for money. Missionaries work for the purpose of the company that you're building. They love the company. They will go and do anything for the company because they believe in it. Missionaries, they spread the name of God. They are the ones who believe in something, and they will eat less, they'll run faster, they'll work more. We're looking for missionaries. And ultimately, stay small and focused. Don't get too big too quickly. If you get too big very quickly, then suddenly the management systems of big companies come in play, org structures come in play, communication begins to become difficult, and silos occur, and we get all kinds of problems. So we've got to be very careful about keeping this team small. That's what Jeff Bezos says. And even today within his company, whenever there's a new business unit started, a new idea. That's the philosophy. The other one is my friends in Korea. These guys are amazing. They act differently also. And how they act differently is very simple. What they say is we are in a world of competition. The Japanese are competing with us. Samsung and LG are competing, and American companies are competing. Competition will come, and you got to go faster than anybody else. Especially in the world you guys are in, digital, where it is so fast to run experiments, so fast to do testing, so fast to build prototypes. You guys have to move fast. And they use a word called pali. I want to emphasize this word, pali. I was in Korea working with LG CEO, helping them build the LCD the devices, the big screen TVs, the 32-inch, the 48 inches, and all the way to the 60-inch the displays. And every time we gave them a plan for how long it should take to build the factories, they said, they made a sound like that. And that sound essentially said, that is not a good answer. And so when we said 18 months, they would say, can we do it in 12 months? And when we said 12 months, can we do it in 9 months? And we asked, why? And the CEO would stand up and smack his hand like this. We got to go pali. We have to go fast. Because if we go slow, we are going to be dead. There is no future for entrepreneurs or innovators for those who go slow, because there is somebody else out there who's as smart as you, maybe smarter, who works harder than you, although you work hard also, and is running as fast as he can. You got to go pali. And that is the word you see across Korea, pali. And I would like you to integrate that into your startup and say, guys, pali. And that will change the game. And to do pali, you can't do this all by yourself. You need to partner, because the teams that you have are too small. The people you have don't know everything, but there are other people in the world who know how to do things, so you partner. And so you ask your big idea, what you're working on, what do we know inside the company? And who should we work with outside the company? And when you put those two pieces together, you should be able to do anything, because everything is possible now. Because if you try and do everything yourself, it'll go slow. You can learn. You might be a smart person, but you know there's 8 billion people on the planet. So look outside for knowledge, skills, and as you partner with each other, your big idea, you should be able to make a bigger impact because you can go faster, reduce risk, lower cost, and more options. Pali. I just want to share with you, that's exactly what I'm doing right now with the new startup. It's called Akayo. And if you get a chance, go to the website, akayo.ai. And the whole idea is, how do you identify bigger, bolder ideas using trends? And then with those ideas that you generate through AI power, how do you find the partners who can help you make it real? Because you don't need to have all the knowledge and all the skills. When Elon Musk made the first Tesla car, he did not have a clear idea of how to make the car. He first came up with the idea that there's a car. And then he says, what does it take to build it? And he found partners around the world to say, help me with the battery, help me with the motor, help me with the braking, help me with the Italian design, and put all that together and assemble the competencies to make the electric car. And therefore, I can be in the business of making electric cars. I don't need to know how to do everything. So imagine big, bold things based on the future, the trends, and whatever which is big and bold, if you find partners to do that, then you make it happen. So Akayo is a software that we're building that will allow us to identify big, bold ideas and then give you confidence that there's people around the world, because it's got a matchmaking component to help you with this expertise. So with that, I want to stop and maybe take some questions from you guys. We're getting close. But the first thing is, remember, I told you growth is important. Know exactly what your targets are, how much time you have to do it, and stay focused on that. That's your objective. Then you have to think differently about ideas. Ask what's next, what else. And on those ideas that you come up with, 4 things. What are the trends that support it? What customers need it? How will you make money from it? Business model, and what's the barriers to entry? If you have that idea, you have to implement it. You implement it. Remember, the journey is not a straight line. It's a squiggly line. And on that journey, think about Sherpas, coaches to help you Think about processes that you can use. Make sure you have an awesome team. And remember, pali, or fast, and think of partners to close the gap. Guys, thank you very much. I hope it was helpful and insightful. Happy to take questions now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hitendra. It was very, very insightful. And so, guys, if you have any questions, please just I'll open your mic, and you can ask Dr. Hitendra directly your questions.
People are shy, or they went for a coffee break. You see, in my classroom, when I teach a class, and I do it online, I require them to keep the cameras on. But but not all places like doing that, so it's kind of hard.
Hi everyone. If you have any question, if you don't want to open your mic, maybe you can just ask the question on the chat.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Hitendra.
Yes, it was very, very insightful. Yes, you can either write it down and we'll ask it to Dr. Hitendra, or you can just request and I can open your mic and you can ask it directly. Yes, so Fatih is asking, according to your expertise, what do you think could be trends right now for cybersecurity awareness education?
So,
Thank you, Fatih, for the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Cybersecurity is, look, we are already seeing that everything is now connected, whether it's banking, whether it's the government, the military, whether it's your home security, everything is connected. And so because of that, people can break in and they can break into your house, they can break into your Alexa and say, Alexa, order PlayStation and send it to this address. They yell it loudly to an Alexa inside the house. That Alexa will order for you, and Amazon will ship it to the address. And who's saying it can't do that? Right. So we are in a situation where every single interface where we put up a silo or a wall is now at risk of being breached. So when you put your money in a bank, it's just a number. I just want to be very clear about it. It's just a number in the bank account, in a computer. Somebody could change that number, right? So the amount of protection that we'll need is going to increase dramatically. And so we do need to make sure that there's redundancies and things like blockchain and others will provide some sort of checks and balances. So on cybersecurity, we'll need to validate even more. And that's going to be important. When I I just arrived this morning from Spain to Boston, and I walked at immigration. It was just a camera, no passport. They just looked at my face and said, "Welcome, Mr. Patel," and that was it. Nothing, no issue. Just walk, no line. That was it. So we're coming to a point where facial recognition, all that type of stuff is happening, and they somehow seem to do it really well. But for everything that we build as a security, there's another team working on how to break it. Another team is trying to break it. So at the end of all of this thing, so when you think about it, what you do need to pay attention is be domain expert on something like finance or something like identification or payment systems or whatever it is. Be an expert on one thing. And on that expert system, recognize that you will have to provide some sort of security to make sure somebody is not getting cheated, right? So that's one part of cybersecurity. The other one is, which is the big thing that is happening, the Pentagon, for example, in the US. At one time, the biggest fear 10 years ago was that there was going to be kinetic attack. Kinetic attack is throwing stones, throwing big heavy things at each other and hurting each other. Now, those attacks are coming as little viruses, little malwares and all that. And they're all attacking the banking system. They're all attacking different things all the time. It's not just one, all the time. And so this is going to be a huge opportunity. And this opportunity will be either being managed by the guys who manage our emails on one side, because they'll be using some sort of malware software to protect things on that. So my belief is watch blockchain emerge as more important every day. Watch the fact that as cryptocurrencies increasingly become popular, especially with President Trump in power now, and is pushing crypto a lot. So that's another trend that's going on. Watch the fact that even the most boring industries, the old industries like agriculture, precision agriculture, there's money where you plant the seeds. There's money where you put the fertilizer. There's money where the water is going. And any mass and volume that moves around and digital is involved, somebody could find a way to capitalize and monetize that, right? So cyber security, right? Security is protection. And cyber is exactly what it means. Everything is going to get connected. So my guidance is think of your industry and see what's happening. Agriculture is doing precision agriculture. Everything is going to payment systems which are digital on your phone now, right? So that's another one. And in here, combine those trends with blockchain, combine those trends with an increased complexity of computation, and see how you can play a role in it. But use trends to make sure. But two things also keep in mind. Some industries are very clear and easy to understand, and that's where everybody's going to rush to. Your advantage sometimes is to go to the second industry or the third industry that is a little bit of a laggard. But by the time you're ready, they become a leader. My friend essentially went to agriculture. He and I were working in Motorola. He was part of the team that then made the GSM phones at Motorola. And he says, I'm going to go into agriculture because agriculture is the last industry to seem to get automated. And now he's building tractors, which are robotics. But even that tractor, it works at night with nobody sitting in it. And it can be taken over and redirected to destroy things, redirected to go work on somebody else's farm for free, and all that kind of stuff. The tractor is just moving. And how will you control your tractors, your autonomous cars, and everything else? Cybersecurity will play a role in that. So look at across industry domain, and then technology domain, and then the customer domains. But much of this thing will be B2B, and there will be a B2C fear that somebody's going to take my money, so I'm not going to use my credit card. 25 years ago, nobody put a credit card on the internet. Now we don't even care, right? So that's the security. But it's gonna, as we do more on the internet, we do more with through digital. There are going to be places where there's going to be one failure here, there, or anywhere, and then bam, you're going to be. You'll see how important cybersecurity is. You guys are important. The problems you're solving are really important. That's mine.
Thanks so much for the answer. Asma, you have a question? I will open your mic now.
Thank you, Atman. Thank you, Dr. Hitendra, for the amazing talk and for being with us today. I have a question, but I think before mine, there is Ahmed, one of our startup, who is asking, do you think integrating VR into the education sector has great potential, or is it a dead short trend?
It's a good question. I mean, first of all, virtual reality is here, and education will be there forever, right? So those are the two very important parts of the trends. Everybody needs to get educated, and virtual reality is here. The thing is, the form of virtual reality and the way it will be available changes every day. So virtual reality may look like a big thing on your head over here right now. Tomorrow it might be a contact lens, and that's it. So what is the format by which you'll see this thing is going to change. So you got to be very flexible in knowing what the roadmap is of virtual reality and what's going to be next and next and next. And you can design for today's virtual reality environment, or you can design for tomorrow's virtual reality tools and solutions. So keep that in place. The other part is education is going to change too. Though we need education, the way we'll get education is going to change. So some of it will be simulation. That's what the virtual reality is, simulating spaces as if you're traveling to the Victoria Falls or Machu Picchu and other places around the world. You can do geography like that. But there's also the fact that we do want to work in teams. And we learn a lot more through teams sometimes. And so how will the virtual reality also work with that? So think of the third trend in here, saying we believe in action learning, we believe in teamwork. And when we do those things with the virtual reality and the education, now you might have something different. So it's not just the trends, but also recognizing what the education trends are. What do teachers of tomorrow say we need to do? And the last one is, again, making sure you select an app or a product that is exciting and compelling. So if you choose something like, oh, okay, I will teach history. History could be cool, interactive way or something. But what is the one thing that you can choose that everybody says, oh yeah, I connect with it? So the bigger consumer acceptance around the topic is, the more it's going to be exciting. So think of the student of the future also. Is it still kids? I could be your student next year, and I would love to be, because I'm going to live another 30, 40 years because of living longer. Medicine, healthcare, better food, fitness. So I still want to learn too. So what is it that I want to learn as a topic? And therefore, is the older segment more interesting because we already have money? Or do you want to target the education system, which is really hard for you to get into because they've got all this board of education and teachers who say my way or no way? Or do you want to go to a new place where people have no rules, and therefore you could be the cowboy making the rules? Right? So think carefully through the trends. Those trends give you insight where to play in the future and how to win in the future. Trends are powerful. I like virtual reality. I believe it's coming though. So to your question, yes, push on, push on.
Push on it. Dr. Hitendra, thank you so much for this. Maybe a last one before we can wrap up the session. You discussed the importance for startup once they are creating their value proposition to ensure barriers to entry. And with all these, conversions of technologies, but as well, if we just focus, for example, in cybersecurity, we are having a number of products or services that are already existing in the market. So how can we ensure as startup that we are having, even if we are not having strong barriers to entry, that we are competitive enough? Is it about speed? Is it about how we can excel in execution? What would be your advice for
the first thing is, as I said, competition will come, and in this space it's crowded. There's a lot of people thinking and learning because the barriers to start is easy. You need a computer. That's it. You need a computer and some software, and you can use things in the cloud. So everything is very easy to get startups done today compared to building a factory, right? So those things are different. So now if that's the case, then you need to go fast. Of course, you need to go fast. But you might want to focus on niches that people aren't paying attention to. Because if everybody's going towards, as I was saying, my friend went to agriculture. Why? Because he said no technology person wants to go into agriculture. I'm going there. And he won big. He's got a robotic tractor company worth about $2 billion right now. And it's going to be very big going forward, right? But he chose not to go into a crowded space like robots for factories, where Tesla and everybody else is fighting it out. So a niche is important, a niche. But in the case for my friend also knew agriculture because he was a farm boy from Iowa. That was his history. So he understood farming also. So there's a domain knowledge that's important. Niche, domain knowledge with cybersecurity embedded in there, and then go pali, fast. And that should help you win. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, guys. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and good luck with your startups and your ventures. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the cover of some magazine in the UAE, standing there as the heroes and the entrepreneurs of the region, and soon conquering the world and taking on Elon Musk. Good luck, guys. Best wishes.
Thank you, Dr. Hitendra.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much. Bye.
Ciao, guys.